Hello, and welcome to our CX webinar, The New Seamless, Engagement Reimagined for the Modern Customer Experience. My name is Jess Baza with Argyle Executive Forum, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. I have a few details to share with you, and then I will turn things over to our esteemed speakers. First, we would like to thank Gladly for their partnership with today's event. They've been a wonderful thought leadership partner to Argyle and are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. So thank you again to Gladly. We welcome you to stay connected during today's event. You can follow us on Twitter at Argyle Exec Forum and be sure to join our LinkedIn group, Customer Experience Forum. I also want to take a moment to touch on our content neutrality policy, which we've curated based on the feedback we've received over the years from our members. We're proud and protective of this policy as it reflects our commitment to ensure the neutrality and overall value of the content presented at our events. We work closely with our speaking faculty to ensure that you receive a set of balanced and neutral viewpoints during the session today, and we appreciate all of our attendees' support of this policy. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, please submit any and all questions that come up during today's event into the Q&A section of the interface. Following today's panel discussion, we've set aside some time for our speakers to weigh in on your questions. Now, without further ado, I'd like to turn things over to our speakers for today, who will introduce themselves. Following introductions, I'll turn things over to Mike and Kate, who will walk through a case study of what Crate & Barrel has done in the space. Selena, let's start with you.
Great, thanks so much. I'm so excited to be part of the group here today, and I know both of, I guess all the presenters today, and I think they're really leaders in the customer experience space. So personally, I have had my entire career focused on customer service. I had a CSR role early on in my career and eventually went through the entire career path, became a vice president, and then I became a consultant for a few years, and I am back with a brand now as a vice president of customer experience at an amazing achievement company called Herff Jones. And I've worked for organizations like McDonald's Corporation, Vera Bradley, Sweetwater Sound, and as a consultant, I was able to work with great organizations like Hanes Brands and Crate & Barrel and others. But along the way, I really learned that different industries really share a lot of common and transferable information around the customer experience and their goals and their aspirations. So I'm anxious today to learn from Crate & Barrel and Gladly on how I can continue to transform the customer service organization. And really what's been important for me is really to create customer moments along the way. Now that I lead larger teams and these teams are focused on exceptional customer service and experience, my goal is always on creating those moments and really helping to the brands that I work with to differentiate from those that are in the marketplace. So very excited to be part of this group today, and thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Selena. And now we'll go over to Susanna. Welcome, Susanna. Would love to hear a brief intro about you.
Thank you so much, and hello, everyone. My name is Susanna Hadley, and I'm really excited to be here. Like Selena, the bulk of my career has been in customer experience, and I also started in the front line in our retail stores for T-Mobile and moved on to our customer care support. And so I understand what it means to be a frontline advocate and how that feeds directly into the customer experience. And it's really shaped the work that I've done my whole career at T-Mobile overall. Now I'm with our quality programs team, and I lead programs that support customer experience in our front line so that we can ensure that we're providing the best experience to customers, but also taking their feedback and moving them into our business to be both disruptive, create change, and really change the industry for good in general, not just at T-Mobile. My focus really in my work today is on real-time customer feedback and making sure that our frontline has the tools needed to act quickly and really have a pulse on what their base and customer experience looks like and how it's impacting long-term relationships, churn, customers calling back, and overall effort. But we also ensure that we're collecting voice of the employee through all of our programs because we understand how the two are really linked together in so many ways. During my time at T-Mobile, I've come at customer experience from a lot of different directions, not just the front line, but through human resources, through strategy, being a customer experience manager, and doing analysis overall. And so you could say that I have a pretty 360 view of what customer experience is for our organization in general. As a frontline advocate, our goal is really to make experiences that stand out for our frontline, and our frontline continues to be first because our customers are first. So I'm really excited for this conversation today, and I'm looking forward to all the questions that come up. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Susanna.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Oh, go ahead.
Nope, I was just going to say, as our attendees can hear, we've got a lot of great experience on the line. So, Mike, it's my pleasure to turn things over to you to introduce yourself and to introduce Kate, and then we'll have a discussion later on. So thanks so much, Mike. Welcome, and over to you.
Great. Thanks, Jess. Really appreciate that. So, Selena and Susanna, thank you so much for being part of the conversation. Agree with you, Jess. A lot of great experiences that are here with us on the panel. Would love to get this to be as interactive as we can with regards to the audience that's online today and the ability to sort of get some questions out there to sort of start some of the dialogue. For folks who are attending today, just a real quick overview. There's kind of a macro agenda, which is sort of like we're going to be spending some time talking through the Crate & Barrel story as it relates to seamless experiences around, the modern customer shopping experience as well as the customer service experience. So we're going to go through a little bit of a case study with Kate Showalter, which I'm really, really excited about today. There's lots of great insights to share. And then we're going to spend about 25 minutes towards the end of our session today with an open panel conversation with Selena and Susanna and Kate, all participating in a dialogue around customer experience, customer service, and what it means to deliver that seamless experience across all the different touch points that they have. As Jess mentioned before, we have the ability to do questions at the end, but if people have questions throughout the conversation today, feel free to submit those, and we'll see if we can either address them in real time or maybe we'll table those towards the end of the session. So without further ado, let me just quick intro on my side. I'm Mike McCarron. I run the sales organization at Gladly. Have been with the company a little more than 4 years. Originally started out at Gladly as part of the customer success organization. I ran that team, which essentially was involved in all of the implementations, deployments, and rollouts and onboarding and adoption of Gladly as a platform for customer service and customer experience teams that wanted to move into a more personal and customer-centered service experience. I'm joined by Kate Showalter, who is just a very, very thoughtful individual in the customer experience space. We're going to tell all about her story, but maybe Kate, quick introduction for you. We've got plenty more to talk about in terms of your background with Crate, but maybe just as a quick intro and an opportunity to say hello to the audience today.
Sure. Hi, everybody. This is Kate Showalter. I am so excited to be here and to be part of this forum with Mike and Selena and Susanna. So thank you for having me, and I can't wait to start the discussion.
Super. Great. So let's get right into it. So what we're going to do today is, again, we'll do a quick intro of Gladly. For folks who know who Gladly is, this may be a little bit of a refresher. It's probably going to be about 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes total. The purpose and the intent of today's conversation is to really get into the specifics of Crate & Barrel's journey as it relates to a seamless experience, not necessarily a product overview or a Gladly overview. But for those who don't know Gladly, we're going to do a quick intro of who we are and the problem we solve in the market. We're going to go through introductions around who is Crate & Barrel and who is Kate and her experience at Crate & Barrel, and you're going to see a really interesting progression from a career standpoint for Kate there that really provides, as Susanna mentioned as well, a really interesting and in-depth 360-degree view of what the customer experience can and should be for customers of Crate & Barrel. We'll talk about the experience that Gladly and Crate & Barrel are building together and developing together, and we'll then look beyond that, 2020 and beyond, to see where does this go? Where is the relationship going, as well as where are the innovations and where are the thought leadership things that Crate & Barrel are doing? Where is that going down the line as well? We'll share some lessons learned at the end. Lots of great insights in terms of what to do and maybe what not to do in terms of things to think about as it relates to a seamless customer experience. And then, of course, we'll go right into the panel discussion and then Q&A after that. So quick Gladly intro. Again, this is going to be very, very basic, very simple. The idea of Gladly is that Gladly is a business-to-consumer customer service platform that puts the customer at the center of everything that we do, right? So we've intentionally gone away from the model of cases and tickets, which are very impersonal ways of engaging service, and we focused everything that we do around the individual consumer and what the organization or what the customer service agents need to know and understand about that customer to deliver great personalized service. So everything around who is this person? Are they part of the loyalty program? How long have they been a customer? What purchases have they made? What service programs are they a part of? What any and all information that allows the agent to deliver personalized experiences gladly focuses on that. We also focus on this concept of a lifetime of conversations, in that we know that the word omnichannel, and Kate and I are going to get into this a bit in a future here, is that omnichannel doesn't mean that you have all of the context and the communication in one place. You might offer voice and email and chat and messaging, but if those channels are fragmented and siloed into different systems or platforms, the agent has a really difficult time understanding the full context of the conversation as it relates to all the different channels that consumer might be using to engage the brand and service. And so bringing together voice and email and chat and messaging and social into one platform and actually sort of organizing all of those communications by time in a lifetime of conversations gives the agent insight and context as to what is the issue that the customer is raising, and are they using different channels to sort of get that issue resolved. And it also helps the customer not have to repeat or retell their story, especially as they move from one channel to the other. Lastly, we really do focus on specifically, how do we make sure that the agents, the supervisors, and the managers are productive and are ensuring that they are doing all the things that they need to do to drive efficiency, to drive effectiveness in terms of engaging with customers. So we really do focus on how do we drive productive agents. The onboarding of agents is very easy. It's a very messaging-inspired UI. We do a lot of things related to ensuring that the agent has a great experience so they can deliver great personalized experiences to the consumers that they do business with. Okay, that is the background on Gladly. If anybody wants more details, you want to sort of dive into more specifics around how Gladly does this, we are more than happy to share that. But I think that for the time today, we really want to get into the story around let's get to know Kate and Kate there as well. So as we start, let's dive in. Kate, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation today. We probably have more than 20 to 25 minutes of topics and content and insights to share. But let's start off by just talking about Crate & Barrel, how the company got started, and how the importance of customer service and customer experience was there as a core foundational component of the business as it got started.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. So at Crate & Barrel, hopefully you're all familiar with the brand, but what we do is we source beautiful product for the home. So today we curate inspiration from over 100 artisans and designers in over 42 countries. We have over 1,000 vendors that represent our nearly 20,000 home furnishing SKUs. But for us, it goes much deeper than that. So our mantra and what we're really all about is that we help people love how they live in moments that matter. So that's kind of Crate. It's who we are and it's what we embody. For us, though, it starts with a store. So we, while we've been around for 60 years and we are a vibrant e-commerce brand, we can take a look at this next slide and show our very first store on Wells Street. So it might seem funny that for a brand that sells over 45% of its products online to show you this little place on Wells Street in Old Town Chicago, but understanding where and how we got started is really important for my story. Crate & Barrel was started by Gordon Siegel and his wife. They had a passion for the curation of goods, world's great home furnishing, focusing really on design, function, and quality. They started one store in Old Town Chicago with crates and barrels as the visual merchandising, and it became iconic and imitated throughout the world. We became a brand known for exceptional customer service, with these famous black and white boxes that I hope everybody has seen. And we've developed a culture of store associates who take immense pride in the customer relationships that they've established. And it's really that one-on-one, how people interact in their home, that drives that store experience and now our total brand experience. So a little bit about me before we go on. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Nope. Go right ahead, Kate. I was just going to transition right into that, but feel free to keep on going.
Good. Perfect. Thanks, Mike. So a little bit about me before we go further into the brand story. I've been with Crate for nearly half of its existence. My background and passion is in retail. So I spent my first 16 years of my career in store leadership, progressing from the front line, which is pictured here, up through regional management. After leading a project to improve store organization and processes, I was asked to transition to what was then our newly formed international operations team to establish our franchise model. We launched more than 20 stores in 10 countries in just 3 years. So that is a quick amount of learnings in a short span of time. From leading international operations, I transitioned to establish our strategic PMO, our program management office, providing project management support and governance to all large-scale initiatives for Crate & Barrel Holdings. Then, almost 2 years ago, I was given the opportunity to return to my passion and more directly help our customers again as the Senior Director of both customer service and the PMO. Mike alluded to that a little bit. It does uniquely position me to focus on contact optimization and work that truly improves our customer experience end to end, especially with involvement both in customer service and the PMO. I lead our internal CX task force that works towards continuous improvement of our customers' experience throughout their total journey with us. Within customer service, we're focused on creating higher touch experiences through empowerment of our contact center associates to give truly personalized service. We're working to innovate and utilize technology, which we hope creates a better associate experience. And then I believe that great associate experience in turn really supports and creates the best customer experience.
Great. So Kate, I think obviously that PMO, we're going to get into the details of this in a little bit towards the end of our conversation, but thinking about that cross-departmental, cross-functional sort of like visibility and view that you had as part of the PMO organization, that's clearly a big part of like your learnings from that experience as it applies to customer care and customer service. Would be very much interested to explore that a little bit more today, but any thoughts on some things that you've learned or things that you observed as part of the PMO that you knew when you were given that opportunity to come into the customer service and customer care group, you had a short list of things you wanted to go after?
Absolutely. And I think that is reflexive in kind of the total journey that we've taken at Crate in order to really view our customer experience within the journey and how we've explored that cross-functionally and utilized all parts of our business to really examine how we can do better and think about it from the customer's perspective, but utilizing all functions within our organization. So we can definitely talk more about that.
Super, great. So let's actually dive in then. We've actually talked a little bit about sort of your experience and the background that you've had and being there for many, many years. Let's actually give a little bit of an overview for folks in the audience that may not know how Crate has evolved as a company over those 60 years, and certainly some of the new innovation and as well as some of the new acquisitions that you've done as a company to sort of broaden the product portfolio, which, and I know that we're going to have a conversation about this later, not only are you broadening the product portfolio, but you're also broadening the customers that you service in terms of age demographics and things of that nature. So it would be great to sort of just hear the story around how Crate has evolved and grown over the last 50 to 60 years.
Right. I think it's so important to see all those layers. So the Crate & Barrel story started with the first store in 1962, like we saw there on Wells. Then we added on gift registry, furniture, and in 1999 we added on our online business. Since then, we've added additional brands, CB2, Creighton Kids, our new restaurant called The Table at Crate, and most recently in 2019, we acquired Hudson Grace, which is a great housewares retailer out of San Francisco. We have 114 stores in the United States and Canada and more than 7,500 associates. So it is telling, I think, sometimes our name even is larger than the brand. People are always interested to see that it's only 114 stores when in fact that to us is a large portfolio and far-reaching, and approximately 50% of our sales are online and continuing to grow. So we do have a brand with a great reach. But because of all these layers and throughout the timeline, I think we've thought a lot about our engagement with customers and how that has needed to evolve digitally as well. So we reach millions of customers just to give an idea of size and scope. While we have grown up as a very store-based physical retailer, we have evolved with our customer to be a fully digital brand. We are an iconic brand that has evolved with the digital economy. Our brand has reached into the millions. And yes, it is true, people do in fact buy furniture online. In fact, 40% of our furniture sales are online. And I just included on the slide here some more digital stats. I think one of the most notable being that 49% of our e-commerce actually happens on a mobile device. So if you can imagine, they're not just buying furniture online, they're buying furniture on their phone.
So Kate, how, obviously with all that background and all of that sort of move to the e-commerce business, how has Crate navigated that transition so well? You guys are clearly still a very well-established physical retail store brand, but your e-commerce business is also incredibly strong. How did Crate make that transition happen so successfully? And how do you think about, and how does Crate think about the customer's experience moving from in-person to digital? Because even though we're talking today about customer service and customer experience and that seamless transition, it goes beyond just the channels that consumers use. It actually goes into the ways in which they engage the brand, both walking into a store as well as engaging on the website. How have you all done that so well? And was that a big sort of like focus of the company? It must have been. Tell us about how that happened.
Yeah, it's definitely a conscious decision we've made to make digital more personal. So I think a great example of what you're talking about, Mike, is our design services offering. So we feel like all our interactions with the customer have to feel personal. But the effort around it represents both an investment in people and an investment in technology. So digital options have to work together with associate connection to create that full experience. So for design services, digitally, we offer cool ways to view product in their room or create a mood board for design ideas. You can see those both here. But when the customer is ready, they can make an appointment to meet with our furniture design experts either in store or book a virtual appointment online. Then we also offer some virtual selling with designers, staff to support design questions on chat. So that's a great example of how we're seamlessly working to shift customer conversations seamlessly between our channels. So they can self-service online, they can ask quick questions via chat, but they also have the opportunity to jump into higher touch one-on-one design services, whether that's in person or also virtually. So we think that's a really exciting end-to-end experience for the customer.
And Kate, I have to imagine over the course of the last 3 to 4 months that the importance of those digitally personal service experiences and design service experience are even more critical now because the stores haven't been available to people to go into given everything that's going on. Can you talk a little bit about sort of like how you're leveraging some of those design specialists as part of an extension of your customer care and customer service team? Because I think that's a really interesting and creative way of continuing to deliver great service and leveraging technology and services and tools that you already have in place.
Absolutely. And I think we all know, everyone on the call here knows that this has this recent events have pushed us into places we didn't even know we were comfortable going till we got there. Design services was a focus even before the recent events, but it became more in view that we could do so much more virtually, we could offer so much more virtually, and we could leverage some store teams with that amazing, outstanding expertise that you expect when you walk into a store, to a Crate and Barrel, to really help. So we have furniture experts from stores helping out with these digital experiences in a great new way, really able to provide the customer from their comfort of their own home amazing design services throughout, especially now when we're all sitting on our sofas a lot more, realizing we may need a new one. So it was important that we were there and ready for that.
Great. And then lastly, like, you guys are reaching a large sort of population, and you're doing it in ways that you've never done before. Obviously, social is a big part of that experience as well. Maybe sort of thinking about how you guys have extended the brand and allowed for you to interact with different customers over the social channels. That would be great to sort of hear that thought as well.
Absolutely. Our customer service team handles obviously multiple channels: voice, chat, email, SMS, and of course social media. But with 3.8 million followers across social, we use that as a great indicator of customer engagement with the brand. So with such strong customer engagement, it's critical that we have a consistently positive customer experience, no cracks in our seams. So social is a great example of something where we're constantly using that to watch the pulse and see how we can do better or offer new things or reach out in new ways. So we are really excited about engagement with our customers and how we are seeing that grow and working actively to grow it.
Great. So let's get into the specifics, and let's get into that. We talked a lot about the what, which is what is Crate and Barrel doing, and sort of the initiatives and the programs. Let's actually get into the how. So this is sort of drawing on your PMO experience as well as your customer care leadership experience. Creating seamless experiences do not happen by accident. They are intentional. There is always a lot of work to do. Let's talk about the journey that you had to go through as an organization to really think about that seamless experience you were looking to deliver.
Yeah, more than a year ago, we began looking at our customer journey end to end. So customer comments and complaints were increasing around the gaps or the seams in our experience, especially in our post-transactional journey. Customers didn't know where their order was or when it was coming, and we really started to see some negative sentiment scores around this, and our CEO definitely wanted us to fix it. So we worked with frontline associates in the contact center and in the stores, first to understand better what the pain points were that would help within this post-transaction journey or that they were feeling. But that group was not enough. That frontline CS and stores group was not enough. We needed to pull together everyone who worked on getting product through the system. So we pulled together a cross-functional team from sourcing to buying to technology and channel teams. And what we found was the problem looked like a systems problem, but we really needed everyone to have full visibility and understanding of how product moves and then better message those moves to the customer. We were honestly shocked by our findings when we really dug in, and what we decided was everyone needs to truly take ownership of their part of the problem in order to fix it. So born from this initial deep dive, lots of brainstorming, lots of, you can see here, journey mapping. Our cross-functional CX task force was born, and it meets regularly to look for new opportunities to improve the customer experience. We initiate quick, small wins that can have large impacts, as well as prioritizing some larger scale projects. All of this is done with the customer expectations in mind, and obviously with the support of the PMO. We also,
Kate, I think you hit on something. Okay, really quickly, you hit on something really interesting there, Kate, on the small wins versus the big initiatives. Obviously, you've got to balance the two. I think oftentimes many people are a little bit the task of fixing or addressing the seamless experience might feel overwhelming or daunting to customer service leaders. But if you try to tackle it all at once, it's a very overwhelming experience. But if you think about smaller wins, you can kind of get to a place where you actually sort of incrementally change the experience over time.
Right. And I think that those little changes sometimes have the largest impact, truly.
Yep.
So,
great.
So I was going to go on.
Yeah, keep going, Kate. Please keep going.
Yep. So the consumer is always at the center of our model. So we need to consider their expectations and need. And Mike, this speaks to what you're thinking about, like with the small wins and how we're constantly examining things. You have to look at the journey again and again because those customer expectations are evolving and changing all the time. So we have to think about how a customer prefers to engage throughout the journey. So our DNA is to provide a high-touch customer experience. That's what we started on Wells Street. That's really ingrained in us as that physical retailer. But how we define high touch is determined by the customer. And in our case, it varies greatly by brand. So you can see here our metrics around the percentage of e-commerce by each of our brands for Crate, CB2, and Crate & Kids. And you can see CB2 and Crate & Kids have a much higher e-commerce percentage of business. It's interesting that the same kind of comfort with the digital experience is reflected by contact channel preferred by each of these brands as well. So Crate customers prefer to reach out via phone and email, where CB2 customers really prefer chat. SMS is a new channel for us since launching Gladly, but it has taken off so quickly and established itself as a favorite channel for all of our customers, especially for a quick check-in on status of their order or delivery booking. So for us, that's really generating excitement around shifting to a true omni-channel model where associates work comfortably and confidently in all channels, and we can better meet the customers where they want us to be.
Right, which is a perfect segue and transition into the journey that we're having together between Gladly and the Crate & Barrel brands. Obviously, from a channel perspective, from a customer service perspective, in terms of, like you mentioned, certain customers prefer certain channels. It doesn't mean that Crate is moving away from traditional channels into more modern digital channels. What you're doing is you're creating the ability for customers to reach out across all those channels. So it would be great to maybe talk about the journey that we've had thus far, as well as we think about in the future where we're going.
Yeah, I'd love to. I agree with you. We hear omni-channel used in so many ways now. And to us, when we set a goal of becoming omni-channel, which we did about a year ago, we truly meant the ability to meet the customer wherever they needed us to be. So, Mike, we found a great partner with you in Gladly that provides us with some of these tools to better realize these truly what we feel are omni-channel goals. So first, it started with the need to improve the associate experience. We had a plethora of tools, tons of training, really complex situation for our associates. Now we have one tool with a super friendly UI, and because it's friendly to use, training has been much easier. So we can quickly train in smaller groups, even remotely. So even as recently I've had to scale my group, we can do all of our training remotely from right at home. As we made that shift, that was possible where it would not have been possible before. It's also a great UI for customers. So we have a strong utilization in our new self-service tools with our new chat sidekick. And customers actually love paying through chat. So they love our new payment portal, and we're converting new sales every week, which is great because that supports our separate goal of becoming a revenue generator versus a cost center. So we're looking forward to more internal collaboration as well with our B2B team or our in-store teams. So since launch, to the point of having to pivot quickly, we have added on texting for curbside pickup, which was part of our launch we were not anticipating but are excited to offer. And now we're looking to see where else that can take us, truly.
And I think that is a great sort of summary of the what you needed to do and what the organization was asked to do. Certainly at the beginning of the year, no one would have expected sort of, holiday season volume and holiday season shopping in the middle of April and May. But you guys are certainly in that mode right now, and to be able to bring on board new associates to help with customer service, offer new channels, and even to offer channels that you hadn't anticipated using but have now become very widely adopted across your customers, both the Crate and Barrel brand as well as in CB2 and others. I think it's just really interesting that like having the technology and having the capacity and the capability of innovating quickly, and going back to your comment earlier about small wins, iterative changes, those can drive change. That my guess is that the introduction of SMS as a channel was not sort of something that you had initially identified, but the adoption rate from the customers has been so high that it allows you to now offer a level of service and a convenience of a channel that you never would have been able to sort of do had you not had the technology capabilities in place to do that. So as we think about moving forward, the rest of 2020 and beyond, where does this go? Where does the journey go for you and for Gladly?
Yeah, no, and just to echo what you said, we anticipated chat being a nice little add-on, and it's become a primary driver. So you never know until you put it out there and see what the customer really wants. So as far as kind of going forward, I think what's amazing is we're embracing the concept of a running conversation with each customer, because it shows in Gladly prior interactions with their customer in a timeline view. We can really impress the customer, wow the customer by reviewing past interactions. So my associates now may already know the customer's order number or be able to ask how they're enjoying their new sofa delivered a while ago, and did they want to add on some fun throw pillows from our new collection. So that's how we're looking to continue to make a transactional journey more personal with each interaction. And that, as we all know, takes some customer data. So we're having great internal initiatives around how we make sure that customer data is the best that it can be. How do we make sure we understand the customer's needs and anticipate those needs going forward? How are we more proactive in our reach? And what do we do to make sure that we're efficient as we do so? So seamless really to me means that end to end, the customer gets what they want when they want it, and sometimes something they didn't even know they wanted. So we anticipate those needs proactively and we reach out more proactively. And that's going to be driven by those improvements we're continuing to make on going to our customer data and those customer views in partnership with our new tools.
Super. And as a final thought, obviously so much insight, so much experience, so much knowledge to share. I imagine there's a bunch of folks on the line today that are interested to learn, like what did you learn through the process? What would you do differently? What would you sort of reinforce doing even more of if you had a chance to do it again? There's always great lessons learned to share. Maybe in sort of the final couple of minutes we have allocated for our time, just talking about the lessons that you've learned around what you did and what you would recommend to others to do, and then moving beyond that to some final notes and final thoughts.
Yep. So I think some of our most important learnings as we've taken this journey is to focus on associate ease. If you want a great customer experience, you have to give your associates a great experience. Everything has to be at their fingertips, and they have to be able to be very comfortable and confident as they click through that. I also think that personalization is dependent on accessibility of good customer information. So being able to see the customer, understand where they've been with your company, understand where they are in their current journey, being able to go back a few steps to go forward even more effectively. So how we give our frontline associates great customer information is critical. Also, connected conversations create service magic. So I know that when I call in somewhere for help, or my expectation of my team is that really the associates work hard to try to know that customer. So if they can see what the customer has asked for before and anticipate that next need, we've already won. So seeing the timeline, knowing what other interactions they've had, and giving accessibility to that across channels. So if a customer has emailed before and now they're calling, giving the associate the content of that prior email seems so small, but it's so huge for the knowledge that they have and their ability to move forward. And it really does feel, I think, like service magic. Our customer determines the quality of service, so we listen to them, we follow what they want, we check in on that journey regularly, and we have to make sure we're comfortable pivoting when we need to, adding on text, thinking about curbside, really looking at new opportunities and how they drive us quickly in new ways. So always be ready to pivot. And then finally, true omni-channel service means seamless digital tools working together. A lot of visibility, a lot of integration, how we leverage that technology has to really work for the people that the technology is used by. So omni-channel service should feel invisible to the customer, but really does require that investment in good technology and digital tools.
Excellent. Thanks, Kate. And last final thoughts, and then we'll open up to some questions for the rest of the panel. Any sort of like final words of wisdom here on your experience with going through this process?
Yeah, super quick. I think just in summary, experience your customer's journey. Make sure you go through it yourself. Review touch points as a team. So you need cross-functional participation to understand how to fix things. Don't stay in that CS silo, but work across your organization. Model customer focus from the top of your organization, which I am proud to say we do at Crate, and I'm lucky to work for a team that really prioritizes the customer every day. And celebrate the wins, and then obsess about filling in even the smallest gap, because those small seams are contact drivers and could make the difference for how your customer experiences your brand.
Great, Kate, thank you so much. There's so much in there.
Yeah.
I probably have 25 more questions that I would love to ask, but in the spirit and the interest of time, we are at a point right now where I want to sort of open up to the panel and start to engage a little bit in terms of a related, but a little bit more of a broader conversation around the different sort of areas that folks like Herff Jones and T-Mobile are also doing with regards to creating seamless experiences. And what I thought I would do is jump right into a couple of questions. So again, here's our panel. Kate, thank you so much. Selena and Susanna. In terms of, I'm going to start with Selena, because I think, Selena, you have an interesting story to share, both from your prior experiences working for some of the brands at Sweetwater and Vera Bradley, but in terms of your current role, creating that seamless experience across all the channels and all the interactions and touch points that you have. For folks who don't know who Herff Jones is, maybe a quick background as to who Herff Jones is, because you guys are doing things differently today than I think you probably ever imagined as an organization, given the service and given the mode and the operation that you guys are in as a business. So let's start with you, Selena, about that seamless experience across all channels and how you do that in the midst of everything that's going on today.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And it has been a really interesting couple of months, but Herff Jones is a 100-year-old company that has its roots in celebrating achievement. So everything around the academic or the student achievement or even a life achievement. So they are part of a company of Varsity Brands, which has two other organizations, BSN and Varsity Spirit. But Herff Jones primarily is focused on commencement cap and gowns and all the regalia that goes along with that, all the jewelry and the commemorative, rings that you would have around achievement or any kind of effort that requires jewelry to celebrate it. Our diplomas and our fine paper and announcements around all of that in terms of the experience. But then also our customers are our internal and external sales partners. So because we are a U.S.-based company and our product is produced in the United States, we have a strong legacy of working with high schools and college and administrators and students directly. So we're looking at multiple areas that we've had to support around seamless engagement. So a school may have previously, for example, had product delivered to a campus or pickup to a bookstore, and we've had to come up with, direct-to-student solutions really quickly and on the fly, and that's required a lot of shifting from our focus. Now, I've been with the company just a short time and would have built a roadmap to do a lot of this and a lot of the success that Kate has had, but we've had to pivot really in the short term and say, how do we do some of this very quickly and create a seamless experience? And that's required a lot of feedback from our parents and students and our sales partners and our leadership team, taking the risk and launching some products and services that have been, I think, very effective in the marketplace.
So you mentioned to me when we were sort of like discussing this earlier that, as you can imagine, I think everybody who has gone through that process, the graduation experience is a very emotional experience. It's an achievement, both whether it's high school or college. That emotional experience, being able to deliver personal experiences that really tap into the emotions of the customer and the consumer that's sort of going through that process. What have you guys learned as a result of like many folks having to go through graduation in a way that's very different than what they had imagined?
So that was probably our biggest learning. We knew that wearing that cap and gown, regardless if you're wearing it on a stage or just for your family, is almost symbolic of a commencement or graduation achievement. And it's not something that's done over a couple of days. It's years in the making. So that symbolism was so important for us. So we quickly partnered with two companies called Marching Order and Stage Clip, and we offered a one-of-a-kind experience. I think we're the only folks in the country doing it, which was a virtual graduation where folks could celebrate with their friends and family remotely in a digital way that said, Susan is graduating from college and she's worked hard for this, and how can we do this virtually? So that was no small feat to create that with our partners, but I think, we're delivering just this weekend alone hundreds of virtual commencements around this. So I think that was a good example of pivoting, understanding that personalization is so important. We all want to hear our name read when we walk across that stage, and we were able to create one in a virtual environment.
That's great. Thanks, Selena, for sharing that. Susanna, over to you. Thinking about, obviously, that seamless experience, you've had a really sort of broad range of experiences at T-Mobile. And how does T-Mobile think about the seamless experience between the different touch points and the different sort of interactions that happen along the way as a T-Mobile customer?
At T-Mobile, if you think about, especially right now, it's been amplified with everything that's going on, how vital it is to be able to stay connected to the people that really matter to you. And people use their cell phones to stay connected and understand if their families are safe. They need their phones to have fun, to have conferences, to work, to play. Everything is connected to our mobile devices right now. So we understand, especially going into times like this, but in general, what our responsibility is to our customers to make sure that we don't want to disrupt that. Anything that we do, it's meant to be an easy experience, because the time that we want people to spend with our products and our service is time with the people that matter to them and time that they want to spend. So really, when we think about our seamless experience, it's about limiting the time that customers have to interact with us when they really don't need to. We want an experience to be one where customers enjoy our products without having to call, work through billing issues, work through service issues. They just get to enjoy the product itself. And so if we think back to about 7 years ago is really when our whole shift of how to create a seamless, easy experience for customers began. And it was really at the enterprise level charge to our whole company, but also to our whole industry, to remove roadblocks from customers, to meet them where they wanted to be served, anytime that they wanted to, and if they want to serve differently, to teach them how to do that. And so we give customers, multiple ways that they can get connected to us. They can call us, text us, message us, schedule time to talk to us, go to our stores. and they have a group of people that are dedicated, a small group of people that are dedicated to a geographic region. So it adds this layer of personalization to an experience that is sort of a different look at being seamless. You know, our customer base knows that they have a group of people that really understand what they're experiencing right at that moment, because they're working with customers who are in their same space, same area. If an issue presents itself, we know about it much more quick than we did in the past, because we know our customers in small segments through our team of experts. And that really flows through in all parts of our business. When customers decide to message us, they don't have to stay at their computers. They can switch to their phones and continue that same conversation with their team of experts. And if they call in, then that same team of experts is able to help them and understand what they've been through, trying to resolve their issue through other channels. And so that seamless experience has been focused on listening to our customers, listening to our front line that consistently interacts with our customers and has a really deep relationship to their base, and implementing those changes, both big and small, to make sure that we're making customers spend the time that they have with their family, friends, and using our devices how we intend them.
And I think, Susanna, I think there's been a lot of, at least I know I've read a bunch about sort of how T-Mobile sort of walked through that journey in terms of making the change away from the traditional sort of customer service or contact center format to these regional teams of experts that are a little bit smaller, a little bit more nimble, and they are, you know, arguably more effective at delivering that level of seamless experience and that personalized experience. In terms of the change management side of that, that was a big, I have to imagine that was a big initiative that somebody inside of T-Mobile said, we're going to do this. This is non-standard. This is not really something that is widely adopted across the customer service space. How did that decision get made, and what was the process of initiating the initial work that was going to be required to build that team of experts that were specialized in helping that group of customers deliver that great experience?
It was huge. It was a huge change for our organization. And it started before we even announced to the public that this is our team of experts. This is what we plan to do. This is our responsibility to our customers. We had been piloting what team of experts would look like and feel like, and the cultural change that needed to happen and the technology that needed to be in place to enable it for years before we actually presented it to the market. So it really started with our change to be the Un-carrier, or be different than any other carrier that currently existed. And that was when we decided, okay, customers have told us forever they don't want contracts. Customers have told us forever that they don't want limits on how they use their devices. Customers have said they want to travel. And taking all of these elements of what customers had been providing as feedback that just seemed like industry standards forever, that couldn't be implemented, and implementing them. And that sort of laid the groundwork to our change in culture, putting our customers at the center and really saying, let our customers tell us what they want. Let's get out of the way and enable those changes to create a good experience, and stop being so short-sighted as to, you know, what's going to happen right now in this transaction, and really thinking about our long-term customer relationship and what they're going to do in the future, and how they're going to deepen our relationship with them in general with products and service. So team of experts really came about through that same model of thinking that we started about 7 years ago. Was the big shift when we started moving into that direction. And team of experts really was an offshoot of that, to say, okay, well, customer service in itself is a pain point. What is it about customer service when people try to reach out for help that is painful and takes time? And we started addressing those pieces of people don't like to be bounced around. People don't want to repeat their stories. People don't want to call in the first place. People want something fast, quick, and maybe they want to do it in between their breaks and come back to it later. So all of these different pieces of feedback about the pain that existed within customer care, especially when reaching out to your wireless provider, were implemented, and that's where Team of Experts came about. And it was really about understanding, how do you change the way of a customer just coming in and they don't know the person they're talking to, and the person that they're talking to really doesn't have the sense of ownership and responsibility to them. And so we changed our measures of how we now are frontline. They're business owners. Our frontlines have a voice to say what's working, what's not working. We own our cost, we own our revenue, and that's really how they're gauged and what their performance is overall as being business owners. And their ownership of their customer base is because they're dealing with the same customers day in, day out. And if they need to engage another level of support, that person's sitting right next to them, and they have team measures that really gauge how they took care of their base collectively versus individually. So that was really a big piece of the shift, was this individual mindset, moving it to a collective mindset, and that collective mindset was aligned around taking care of our customers and putting them at the center.
Great, that's super insightful, and thank you so much for sharing the background on that. That's just an amazing story, and obviously that journey 7 years ago started. I'm sure it's still ongoing and iterating, and you're sort of constantly improving that process, but thanks for sharing that. Selena and maybe Kate, back to you in terms of, Selena, you're relatively new to Herff Jones, but certainly not new to the customer experience world. In fact, you know, with your consulting practice, Selena, that you had, you were talking to lots of different brands around sort of the change management required to deliver great service. And Kate, you obviously were very much involved in that in the story that you already told in the PMO role. When you think about the driving of that cross-departmental, cross-functional change, how do folks who are on the line today, listening in today, where should they start? Do they start at the ground? Do they start grassroots level? They try to sort of build the program and sort of demonstrate results? Or is it executive level, top-down initiative? Or is it kind of a mix of both? I'd love your thoughts on what you've observed both in your own personal experiences, Selena, but also in terms of advising and consulting some of your clients that you worked with as well.
So, Mike, I've seen a lot of great strategies fail based on poor execution and implementation. And part of that, I think, is what I think Kate and Susanna already talked about, but a great strategy also has some understanding of the depths of it. So understanding how to staple yourself to an order or understand that entire journey and that current state is really important around any plan. What I've seen is a lot of companies will try to change the customer experience in 60, 90 days or a year, and it's usually a multi-year process. And as Susanna said, they were already making headway before they even talked about that to their external customer base. So the change management piece is a big one. It's one I've advocated for in all of my career around customer experience improvement. So innovation, I think, is key, and it really is going to be successful on those around you. So as leaders, and especially now, I think in this last example in this company as well, but we have to focus on initiatives, right, to drive change. And we can see that vision, but to get there, we have to set the clear goals. We have to get the right people involved with a solid RACI model, and then we have to communicate about it. It is okay to say, I'm going to be 20% better this year or 40% better, or I'm going to focus on these 3 priorities and not these 52. And as you launch things, and Kate alluded to it, is this idea of an iterative process. So if you can bat 700, that's pretty great. And sometimes you need to listen to that feedback, make some changes to something that's launched to get even better, but it has to be constantly iterative. And that iterative process is your internal feedback, but more importantly, and most importantly, is the feedback from customers to drive that change. And like we saw recently in the first quarter and the second quarter, also the change of the macro environment, right? And we have to be astute enough to be able to look at some of this feedback or what's coming our way in those headwinds and how do we adjust that. So it's been interesting to work with so many great companies like McDonald's and Vera Bradley and these other amazing companies in different industries. And I can tell you those that succeed very well implement solid change management in their PMO process. And that, I think, is really important. And sometimes in some companies, it's just an education on what good change management means before they start to try to implement the change.
Great, Selena, that's really great. Kate, obviously you've gone through the process. You shared your story. Any other thoughts on the? I think you mentioned, Selena, the focusing on 3 initiatives versus 53 initiatives, or some big number like that. obviously, like, there's probably a laundry list. If I look back at the slide, Kate, that we showed, the number of Post-its that were on that board, that was pretty high volume, pretty large numbers of ideas. How did you distill down those ideas into the things that you thought were going to matter most? And then that iterative process, how did an organization like Crate and Barrel adopt that and implement those? And where did you draw the line? Where did you say we're going to focus on these and not these because these are later stage or these are down the line?
Yeah, I think it is hard to narrow it down, and it is hard to sort through the priorities. And I would absolutely echo what Selena said about it being a multi-year plan versus a single-year plan, and having people in the industry that you can reach out to, like Selena, who's been a great thought partner for me, or having the partnerships or joining these webinars, things like that would really help you to see what other people are doing and how other teams like T-Mobile are focusing their initiatives that help you shape that as well. So I think great learnings are everywhere. To really narrow down the priorities, though, I think what we have to do is focus on what the customer is really telling us. So it may be super important to us internally to change our shipping method or to shift some hard to manage process, but if the customer is not telling us that's a pain point, it gets bumped down that priority list. So we have to keep our pulse on what the customer is saying to us and where their biggest points of friction and their biggest pain points are. So we shift our mindset a lot in these brainstorms and these journey mappings to say, what is the customer telling us and what is most important to them? So any opportunity we get to get customer feedback or venues for customer feedback or to ask questions to really see what they want us to change or where they feel our opportunities are, that's truly what has to be the most important thing. So we focus on those initiatives first that we feel like are the most important to that positive customer experience or to driving this top line or to really making a great impact on how we work. So I think the most important thing to do is use a lot of data and listen to what they're telling us and start there.
Great. And then maybe the question to all three, and I'll let Selena and Susanna sort of chime in here as well as Kate, if you have any insights. In terms of collecting that data and getting the insights from customers, there's lots of different ways to do that. You can do surveys, you can look at sentiment analysis, you can look at ratings and reviews. What are the ways, or how are T-Mobile, Herff Jones, and Crate and Barrel, what are the sources, and certainly the customer service teams themselves in terms of the interactions and the issues that they're addressing, what are the most accurate sources of customer insight or feedback that allow you to say these are truly customer issues that they're raising that need to be fixed versus noise that's sort of in the background that you're trying to distill between what's a real initiative versus what is a one-off? Like, are there any sort of great sources of content or insights that you guys can share with others about how you've done that?
We have a couple that I think more recently in the last year we started really leaning into speech analytics on our customer care side and understanding when customers are having conversations or based on their call driver, where do we either have opportunity or where has there been change over time that signals something that we need to address quickly or long term or build into a process, whether it be through process change, a product, training our front line. We really have relied heavily on that in the past couple of years, but mostly in the last year. And I would say one item that it's not as much big data, but it resonates so much with our frontline and our executives is journey mapping individual customer experiences, which we usually will get off of our voice of the customer, where we see a customer who's had a particularly painful experience tied to something that we want to change or that we think needs to be changed based off of feedback. And we show that progression over time for the customer and highlight and illustrate that, hear what they've told us through verbatim comments. And it really brings to light what we're proposing as a business change, what it's doing to our customers personally and how they're using our products and impacting their personal lives, which tends to make a huge difference when we're trying to make changes and trying to make them quickly and need, a collective group across the company to help us do that. So that's what we've leaned into a lot over the last year, are those two areas specifically.
Great. Selena or Kate, any thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I would just echo what Susanna said. For our company that's very, very heavy relationship-based, we rely on a lot of information and data coming in from our sales team that has the direct interaction with our school administrators and some of these larger educational institutions. But what's interesting about journey mapping, and I'm sure everybody has experienced this, surveys can take you up to a certain point, but customer behavior, I think, is a good indication, right? Customers may say they're going to do one thing and then what they actually do is another. So finding all of those touch points and how you can observe behavior, where they abandon the cart or where they disconnect, that's insight that maybe a customer won't always directly tell you, but that indirect customer behavior knowledge is important. And sometimes, and it doesn't really matter the organization, their sophistication of their data and how they source it, there's always data in a company, even if you have to manually grab that data until you can automate it. There's always data in the company. I think the biggest thing is to making sure that it's factual, normalized, and it's accurate data that you're going to be basing your decisions on.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Selena. And just to echo real quick the thoughts there, that I agree with all of that. The only additional, I guess, point I would make is that we all sit in a position in CS where the contact drivers themselves are the data and are the information to the rest of the company. So the louder we can be as advocates for our customer across our organization, the more beneficial we can be. And to that point, good disposition codes, really seeing why customers are calling, what's driving those contacts and what's driving those points of friction kind of adds on to what Selena and Susanna have said.
Great. So a couple of other final questions. These were questions I've been trying to sprinkle in through the Q&A from the folks that have been attending. One question that's come up, which I think is interesting, is when you sort of apply an international or a multi-language sort of like lens to that experience. Obviously, most folks in the U.S. and the U.S. market, it's obviously just primarily English speaking, but for the international brands and the international experiences, are there ways in which you're thinking about delivering service as it relates to different languages in those channels? So like offering, support for French or Spanish or German or any other languages, like are there ways in which the organizations that you guys have either been a part of in the past or you're currently a part of today, how you think about that international language support as it relates to the customer service experience?
I can take that one briefly, Mike.
Yeah, great.
For us, we focus a lot on English, French, and Spanish. We do have a great presence in Canada, which is very fun. So for those truly international locations around the globe, we have invested as franchises. So each of those franchises really manages that language, which I think is beneficial from the standpoint culturally. We really want to be present in every market we're in for the people of that market, and again, in the way that they need us to be there. So making sure that that is local and locally managed is really important to us as well. But we do translations in French and Spanish primarily, but we also have a really diverse workforce, which I'm grateful for. So when needed, we can leverage opportunities for additional languages just by throwing out a text and seeing who can help, or a chat and seeing who can help. So we do our best to meet people where they are.
Great. Selena or Susanna, any other thoughts on that last question? I know we're just about at the end of our allocated and allotted time, but I wanted to maybe sort of ask one sort of last question of everybody, but I'll leave that, maybe that international language support question out there if you have any thoughts on either of those.
Just a quick thought, Mike. When I've worked for like large multi-international companies, what was important with customer service organizations or customer experience organizations is really to understand culturally how individuals want to engage with an organization, right? So in Japan, it would be a very different IVR or customer service strategy than you would have maybe in a Canada or Mexico or United States. So I think understanding those cultural differences, and I've in the past worked with those that are in the country local to understand exactly what is considered customary and acceptable to provide the types of services. And like in some cultures, it's not very natural to complain, right? So how do you still get that customer feedback in a way that allows you to improve the business? So that's what I would have to say. Currently, I'm probably working more on the U.S. front, but like Kate, we do have a diverse workforce that could speak several languages when we need for our customer base.
Great, super. Well, in the last minute or so that we have, maybe just as an open-ended sort of question, Kate and Selena and Susanna, just tons of experience, lots of insight into the customer experience world, customer service, and that seamless journey that you're trying to deliver for your customers. If there was sort of like one sort of like word of advice that you would give to others that want to sort of be successful and really drive the kind of change and the kind of positive momentum around that seamless experience, what's sort of the one thing that you would make sure that people want to focus on or to do? I know we've talked about a lot of ideas, but if you had to pick one, or I'll give you maybe even two, what would those be? And maybe Kate, we'll start with you, and we'll go to Selena and then Susanna, so you guys can prepare and come up with your final thoughts.
Sure. I think first and foremost is be curious. Ask a lot of questions, ask a lot of internal questions, understand the context that your cross-functional teams are working on, understand your customers, and then understand your associates. So curiosity is key and empathy is key. Make sure you get in there and ask a lot of questions and try to understand people's experiences, including your customers. And then I would say communicate a lot to gain buy-in. I think the critical way to drive change in an organization or to focus a project or to drive project management is through really good communication. Give a lot of context, give a lot of the reason why as you talk to teams or invest teams in gaining buy-in and why it's important to your initiative or to your customer or to your business. So communicate and be curious.
Excellent.
I love that. Yes, I would love that and add on a couple of things. First, to understand the why it is completely acceptable and probably expected, regardless of where you're at in the organization, to roll up your sleeves and do the job of whoever is sort of that touch point with the customer. So if it's your distribution teams and they're packing for an open the box experience, or it's your customer service teams, or if you need to work in the restaurants for a week, whatever that is, roll up your sleeves and be a student of your own business so you can get those learnings that'll help you be a better accountant or a better customer service rep, or a better product design, manager. So that would be my first piece. And I've always rolled up my sleeves. And I don't think there's a day that goes by in the 25 years, regardless of the role I've been in, that I haven't talked to a customer at least once. And the second thing is we've learned this now during this pandemic. When our customers need us the most in times of crisis, this is when we need to be the most available to provide some level of confidence, some level of security. And so what's the hardest thing is when they're in a crisis and you're also experiencing the crisis as well, that is never a great experience on either end. So that's been some couple learnings for me. Roll up your sleeves, be willing to do what it takes to understand the business, regardless of the level that you're in. And the second is prepare for those crisis times, because they will happen. I've lived through several in my career, but then you need to be even more available to your customers when they're going through a crisis.
Okay, Susanna.
These are all good ones. And I would say one of the first that I would start with is resisting the urge for short-term goals that have long-term negative impacts. So things like, getting a customer off the phone in that moment in time when we know that they're going to call back in the future and our relationship with them is going to be hampered in the future. So creating any process that really is looking into the future and understanding the customer's perspective holistically is key in anything that you do to make the right type of environment and culture for a seamless customer experience. And then I'd say instilling a sense of ownership in all you do at every level of the organization. And really to do that is having something to rally around that's simple, makes sense, everybody understands it, and everybody can align to it. And oftentimes for us, that's always been starting with the front line and our customers first. And everybody can rally around that message, and it really instills a sense of ownership at every level so that departments aren't competing against each other and ultimately the customer overall.
Great. Thank you, everybody. I mean, just great content today. Communicate, being curious, rolling up your sleeves to really get involved in understanding. I love, Selena, what you said, being a student of your own business to really understand that experience. And then meeting them in these times of crisis or in these times of needs. And then, Susanna, the idea around, short-term activity that results in long-term sort of detrimental customer experience or customer, experiences, if you will. Like that's obviously sort of definitely something that companies don't want to be focusing on, but it's very easy to focus on those short-term things versus the long-term. And then rallying around that big initiative and that big cause. So, gosh, there's just so much more. I would love this to be even a longer conversation, but we are right at 11:15 West Coast Pacific time. I just want to say thank you to everybody for participating in the conversation today, both the panelists, Kate for sharing your story from a Crate and Barrel perspective, to the Argyle Group for letting us have this opportunity to do this. I'm just so grateful for that. If anybody wants to continue the conversation, if they want to find out more information about what Kate has done at Crate and Barrel or what Gladly is doing together, if there's any follow-on questions, feel free to reach out. Both Kate and my email are there. And then I just, again, want to thank the panelists, Selena and Susanna, just tremendous insights. So thank you all for that. And I appreciate everybody's time. Look forward to the next opportunity for us to have a conversation very much like this in the future.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mike, for doing a great job moderating and leading our discussion today. As you mentioned, a big thank you to Susanna, Selena, and Kate for sharing their insights and expertise as well. I want to thank all the attendees for joining us, and we hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.